Time to look back at the last Forge FC contest.
Simply stunning stuff. And finally, their goal.
Here is Match and Review.
My word, what a rocket.
With Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network.
Hello, Forge fans. Final whistle has gone from Spruce Meadows, Foothills County, Alberta. 3-0 the final in favor of Calvary FC over Forge. Ugly result, and quite honestly, not a great performance all around by Forge FC. And to Calvary's credit, Calvary was good. I mean, they looked like a club that was treating this match like a final. They were determined. It was a full 90 minutes. The 7 minutes at the end, I get it. I mean, if it's 7 minutes, it's 7 minutes of stoppage time. It is what it is, but it's just in a 3-0 match, those 7 minutes, they feel like a lifetime, but that's it. Match complete. The standings looking completely different now after that match, and we will get to that in a bit. The story of this one, though, like I said, is clearly Calvary was just motivated all week to treat this one like a final. Forge came out in their traditional 4-3-3 look with Pacias, Campbell, and Borges up top, Sissoko, Hojab, Rapport, and Becker in the middle. Rama, Mandrakar James, Ashinyoti Janssen, and Garvin Metusala on the back line with Tristan Henry in goal. Calvary, sometimes they surprise us when they come out with different looks, different formations, different tactics. And this one, though, this was just Calvary, beating Forge at their own game. It was just a front foot, clean, just in terms of ball movement. They were fast. Listen, Calvary played well. It's painful for Forge fans to hear, but it is what it is. Calvary played a really strong game, and Forge was unable to match it. Ali Musi played more of a false nine role in this one. Calvary with a 3-man back line. For Forge, Benny Badibanga in the lineup for the first time as a sub. He would make his debut later in this match. Forge in their gray and black look, Calvary in red and white. I realize every match this league needs more white jerseys. Not a fan of the color clash as someone who is colorblind and struggles sometimes with some of these matchups. I've seen Forge wear orange and Calvary wear red, and in those matches, forget about it. I don't know what I'm looking at. And Calvary has worn green in the past, and the green, forget about that too. So anyways, it's irrelevant at this point, but I just thought I'd point out, if anyone's listening, more white jerseys in this league. First half, Calvary kicked off, and the crowd was raucous, aggressive on the press, looked to be just the more energized club off the top. Forge had a lot of difficulty getting out of their defensive third in the first several minutes. Early, hard tactical fouls from both sides, setting the tone for this rivalry. And I've said it before, I prefer these rivalries over the geographical ones. Now, sometimes sometimes even the geographical ones are intense, but a lot of times they're just rivalries because they're derbies and because the two clubs are geographically local. But, teams like this, two clubs that are on almost opposite ends. Okay, not opposite ends of the country, but they're pretty far apart, and different time zones. Yet, this is the rivalry probably in this league. Calvary, Forge, so many big matches, whether it was a final, whether it was playoff matchups. So the hard fouls early from both clubs really setting the tone for this one. And Forge didn't even enter the attacking third until the 9th minute, where they were helped by a foul because Forge couldn't get any space on their side of the half. But the foul forced Calvary to back off a bit. And just to kind of put a bow on what I'm talking about, the early hard fouls, Daly from Calvary, he had 3 fouls in the first 10 minutes, which earned him a warning. And, the thing is, with the team carrying the momentum early on, like Calvary did, a lot of times in those scenarios, you better score. especially because it's hard to sustain that for 90 minutes. A, you expend a lot of energy. But B, you're playing against a club like Forge, who is going to get their opportunities. So for Calvary, they had the momentum early. They had more energy. They were threatening, but they just could not connect. They could not find the back of the net early, despite all these opportunities, despite these dangerous attacks. And nothing deflates a team more than being scored on first after coming out with a lot of energy at home and squandering opportunities. Calvary spent time in Forge's box, just wasn't able to hit the target once in several opening flurries. 15th minute, Moosey tried to receive a throw-in, and Mandrakar James was on his hip and sent Moosey tumbling. I thought it was just noteworthy because Moosey was a guy we highlighted that Forge had to keep an eye on, and Mandrakar James making sure Moosey knew that he was there and that he wasn't going to get a ton of space. And it turned out that, all the focus on Moosey and Calvary, it's a quality squad, and they didn't get a lot from Moosey in this one in terms of production, but they didn't need it. And Forge did well early in that first half to defend as a team. Even the attackers, Campbell, Pacias, Borges, sensing that Calvary was threatening. All three of those guys were active in their defensive third, creating turnovers. 20 minutes in, Calvary had 10 touches inside the Forge area, just one for Forge at the other end. Dangerous attacks were 20-7 in favor of Calvary in the first quarter or so of the match. And remember, Calvary, they surprised Forge last year in the playoffs by playing more of a low block, letting Forge come to them, and then trying to force turnovers and beat Forge in the counter. That was not the game plan tonight at Spruce Meadows. Forge made some very uncharacteristic mistakes, clearly on their heels. Calvary, the aggressors, and Calvary did a good job just keeping Becker away from the ball. No one creates more than Kyle Becker in this league. And he had just 3 touches through the first 28 minutes or so. Forge finally got their first shot on target. It came in the 31st minute. And it came after Calvary used an aggressive press, and it was used against them because Forge bypassed it. And when that happens, you're in some trouble. And Forge was able to mount an attack. And there were times in that first half where I'm just in my head, I'm thinking, just get out of this half. If it's 0-0 going into halftime, Forge, they can make some adjustments, start fresh. I don't know that Calvary can do what they did in the first half and come out as aggressive as they did, because it's difficult to sustain. It just is. Especially in a match with two clubs that are this evenly matched and that play similar styles, similar front foot styles. And it's not that it was a dominating half by Calvary. Forge did lead the possession battle throughout. The issue Forge, their possession just wasn't dangerous enough. The easy loss of possession is what concerned me most. Calvary converts chances to goals better than any club in the CPL. And they didn't need any favors from Forge in this one. And the boys in gray and black, they did get stronger as the half progressed, forcing Calvary into some mistakes in some moments, catching them playing overly aggressive at different times. And I think part of it too is, Forge has been so good away from home that you kind of, I had to remind myself, like, okay, I mean, Calvary, they're at home, they're energized. I get it. It's not, it's the hot start for Calvary shouldn't have been all that surprising, just based on just different motivational factors. And the fact that they were the home side. It's expected. Calvary had 5 corners to Forge's 2 in the first half, and Tristan Henry was called upon again. I mean, time and time again, Henry making timely saves on Calvary's final corner attempt of the half. A free header from the left side of the goal, and Henry kicked the ball out with his left foot. Giving up a goal before half would have been devastating for Forge. But the G-GOAT, the greatest goalkeeper of all time in the CPL, doing what he does, keeping the match scoreless. And that last flurry from Calvary actually leveled possession, because as we went into half, ball possession was at 50-50. And when you look at the stats, it looked even for the most part. Goal attempts 7-6 for Calvary, shots on goal 2-2. So, just on that, it looks pretty even. But when you get deeper into the analytics, I mean, dangerous attacks 26-9 in favor of Calvary. And that to me told the story. It looked even, but the attacks just looked a lot more dangerous coming from Calvary. And that's a bad sign because, like I mentioned, this is a very efficient club. Goal conversion rate, easily the best in the league. I mean, no one's even close. So Calvary is a dangerous club, and you can't give them that much space and possession, and you can't allow those dangerous attacks. It looked, Calvary mounting attacks. They made it look a little too easy getting into Forge's attacking third, and it's not something we say often for Forge FC. So second half, I guess matter of time. It took 10 minutes into that half for Calvary to open the scoring. Center back Kabza finishes off a clean set play off a free kick. And this free kick, it kind of encapsulated what we saw in the first half. It was gorgeous from Calvary. I mean, it looked like a video game. It was a set play, 3 quick passes. There was a dummy run sandwiched in between, and Calvary on the front foot with a 1-0 lead. And when I say that, it kind of just summed up how Forge's first half went. It was just Calvary was able to mount speed way too quickly. Just not enough resistance, a little too much standing around on Forge's part. And remember, there had not been a clean sheet in 10 straight matches between these two clubs. So Calvary, yes, they're up 1-0, but just the track record with these two clubs. I mean, the amount of times that these clubs have gone back and forth and late goals and 2-2 games and 1-1 games. And at least as a Forge fan, you thought, okay, I mean, Forge, there's a chance they have one in them, Not that they couldn't have won the match at that point, but it just the way the pitch was tilted, you felt like, okay, there's still a goal here for Forge. But then Calvary, 61st minute, Akio added to the lead. Again, too many guys standing around. Forge had the numbers on defense. Akio, though, just able to just run with the ball. Forge unable to make a tackle. Guys just giving way too much space. I mean, he had so much room. And just like that, it's 2-0. So Forge looking for a spark. They make an immediate substitution after that goal. Benny Badibanga makes his debut after signing with the club last week, number 39, replacing Rubens Pasillas. I am excited about Badibanga and what he can bring to this club because instantly, the second he touched the pitch, I mean, the speed, the energy, the creativity, he's going to be a problem for opposing clubs. And as he gets more acclimated, he's going to play more minutes. And as his teammates, I mean, the one, and it's to be expected, but the one thing was the chemistry with his teammates wasn't quite there yet, and it's understandable. I mean, he had a ton of energy, ball on his feet, looked dangerous, just not quite cohesive with his teammates in hooking up plays, but and linking plays. But you get that. I mean, it's understandable. He's new to the league, new to the club, a lot of new teammates. He's only had a handful of training sessions. Then they had to fly to Calvary, so he needs minutes. He needs to play. He needs to get acclimated. So, regardless, these were valuable minutes for the club and for Benny. Sissoko was also subbed off for Noah Jensen. The bleeding did not stop, though. Already up 2-0. Calvary awarded a PK. Aird was stopped by Henry, but the rarest of rare calls goes against the Forge keeper. I see this. You can go back and look at any PK. Watch the amount of times the goalkeepers come off their line a little bit early, like a split second early. It happens 99% of the time. But it was called. Henry, by the way, made an amazing stop with his left hand, dove to his left, made the save. But he was penalized for leaving his line a little early. If this match was closer, if it was scoreless, if it was tied, if this was like the final minute, I don't think this gets called because it was that close. But it's 2-0 game. They decided to call it by the book. And it was close, but that was the call. Henry gets called. Aird gets another chance, goes to the same spot. Henry dives to his left again, but just a hair, a tenth of a second late. He gets there, he gets a piece, but not enough. And at that point, it's 3-0. And I mean, what's more to say? I mean, that was the final. Not the prettiest of matches for Forge FC. Ball possession, they did. Forge ended this match with 53%. Goal attempts, 15-12 in favor of Forge. Shots on target, though, 6-3 for Calvary. That's a lot of shots on target to give up if you're Forge. And dangerous attacks. Forge had a few late, and I think that kind of evened things up. Because according to the official stats at the end, not official, according to the flash score stats, dangerous attacks were 41-39 in favor of Calvary. So once Calvary got that 3-0 lead, obviously sat back and Forge was able to threaten from there. But Carducci with the clean sheet, despite not having to do much, regardless, credit where it's due. Calvary played a great match. Forge just not able to match what Calvary brought to the table. Revisiting the three keys. Typically, we look for two that can get you 3 points, but usually all three, at least to this point. When we get 3 checks, it guarantees 3 points. Not the case in this one, unsurprisingly. Key number 1 was always aware. This was tied into what I said with Calvary can surprise you. Sometimes they look a little different depending when you play them and how they want to play. Sometimes even whether they're at home or on the road. They will, when they play Forge, sometimes sit back and let Forge come to them and try to beat them on the counter. This one, though, not the case. So always aware. There's a big X for Forge FC. All 3 areas of the pitch. Forge just was not good enough in any of either of those facets of the game. So that's 1X. Lockdown D. Well, that one's easy. I mean, like I said, coming in, Calvary's efficiency, they turn 19% of their opportunities into goals. Again, that's best in the league, and Forge just not able to lock things down. I get team defense was good early on. Everyone was contributing, but Calvary was just able to pick up way too much speed, especially on the wings. And Forge was unable to slow them down. I mean, they tried with some tactical fouls early, but that's not a winning formula. 90 defensive effort was key too. That's an X. That's already 2. Now they got the third one. Mute Moosey. They kept Moosey off the sheet, but I thought keeping him off the sheet would be enough. At least keeping him from linking big plays, and he's a dangerous 1v1 player. He's a guy that beats his man. He's one of the best in the league at that. Forge actually did a fairly decent job against Moosey. The other guys, though, for Calvary stepped up. So that's a check. They muted him, but it didn't really matter at that point. And so, unsurprisingly, the result is 3 points in favor of Calvary FC. Updated look at the standings, because as we know, match in, match out, whatever the table looks like before the match usually looks a lot different after it because of the parity in this league. So with that, Calvary now in first place. They leapfrog both Forge and Pacific. And with 30 points, they lead Pacific and Forge, who are both sitting at 29. Again, very tight at the top of the table. And Calvary and Forge will play one more time this season in a little over a month, 5 weeks from now. And they're playing in Hamilton. So if Forge is able to pick up 3 there, then the season series is completely tied. But as of now, Calvary leads because these two teams tied their first 2 matches. So yeah, Calvary won with 30 points. Pacific Forge at 29, they're tied for second. And then Halifax. I think we're starting to see the separation, although I shouldn't speak too soon because Halifax and Ottawa both have 2 matches in hand on Forge. But I think it's safe to say, at least I feel confident in saying, Calvary, Pacific, Forge. These are your 3 clubs that are going to be battling out for the top spot and the top 2 spots. Because don't forget, with this new page playoff format, finishing first is great, get you a trophy. But finishing in the top 2, it gets you an extra, it's essentially a bye. Because the top 2 teams are going to play each other. And the winner is going to go straight to the final. The loser is going to go, and they're going to get more games and a chance to make it to the final. So it is like getting a bye, finishing 1 or 2. So that is the goal. And of course, it also opens up the possibility of a home final. But long way to go for Forge FC. And next up, They will be playing a club that is desperate for points because as of right now, they are outside of the playoff picture. So York United making the trip to Tim Hortons Field. Last time those two clubs played, Forge embarrassed York at York Lions Stadium. It was 4-0. You got to be weary of these clubs looking for revenge, or at least with added motivation. But for Forge, I mean, this loss isn't going to sit well with them, considering who the opponent was, the result, the fact that this was not Forge. I mean, this was not Forge's game. They did not look like Forge in this one. And they have been looking like Forge consistently over the last month plus. Minor setback, but they're ready to go. And I'm excited to see what Buddy Banga brings going forward, because I think he is going to be a difference maker for this club. And as he gets more acclimated, that case will only be strengthened. So next up, Saturday, August 12th, 7 o'clock at Tim Hortons Field against York. And then a week later, they're at home against Halifax. Back-to-back home matches. Forge needs to pick up more points at home. They've been great on the road, away from home. They've been better at home lately, but they still want to pick up. Tim Hortons Field has to be a place where teams come in and they think our goal is to draw at best, because it's going to be too difficult to pick up 3 points at Tim Hortons Field, and Forge needs more of that. So opportunity coming up, back-to-back weeks. Disappointing results, but things are still, it's fun. This is it. We're in the thick of it. There's 9 matches remaining on the year for Forge. They're a point out of first place. They have more matches against the clubs that they're competing against, and they have a chance to really stick it to York in their next match. And York's outside of the playoffs right now. And so you can really deflate a rival. You're in the 905 Derby by keeping them down even more so. So one final time, some of you close your ears. 3-0 Calvary over Forge. Remember, we have plenty coming for you this week, as we do every week. But Forge Daily, Behind the Beard, Mackenzie doing an amazing job hitting it out of the park with her stuff. And I will be back with a match day preview to set up the clash, the 905 Derby between York and Forge. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your long weekend. And we'll talk to you very, very soon.
This has been Match in Review with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. For the latest on all things Forge FC, subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.